So number one, don't believe the people who promote like this all meat diet, like caveman diet or paleo diet, where you're eating big chunks of meat. That's not how cavemen grew up. It's not how we evolved. We were mostly herbivores. We mostly evolved eating plants and fruits and things that we could gather. Why? Anyone know why? That's right, no weapons. It's hard to kill an antelope with your bare hands. It's hard to catch a gazelle. It's hard. And even in the early days, we were stoning animals with like rocks before we figured out spears. So don't believe these images of cavemen running around with drumsticks, because, you know, if you imagine having to try to catch a turkey without traps, without guns, before spears, you know. So we evolved really just gathering food, berries, nuts, trying shit. And we also ate carrion. Who knows what carrion is? Roadkill. Carrion means roadkill. So dead animals, we would wait until, you know, saber-toothed tigers and big animals had left their catch, and we would eat the carcass. So a lot like vultures. And so we mostly gathered. Now, we also, we think, started, and they've looked at more modern evolution too, but societies that gathered around rivers, and this is where we think like modern man evolved in Africa. People think in Africa, they think like, oh, it's like a desert. Like, no. It's we evolved around river valleys, and because it was we could crop. We went from hunter-gatherers to farmers, but also river deltas. We could catch small shrimp and small fish before we could catch things like animals. So if you don't want to be a vegetarian, it makes sense then that the next step would be a pescatarian, where you eat seafood. I used to be mostly pescatarian. I would say I'm an omnivore now since I've been with Erica. That girl loves her meats. But I should probably go back to that, go back to a pescatarian. I preferred it. I found a really good a new Chinese restaurant the other day. They've been around. I meant to go to see them, but then coronavirus shut us down, and they opened up yesterday, and I was like one of two people in the restaurant, on the other ends of the restaurant, and it was delicious, man. A whole steamed fish with chilies and black beans, and it was amazing. And then this cabbage stir fry with glass noodles. Oh my gosh, so good. I gave the leftovers to Kizzy, and she loved the cabbage and noodles. So she's like, learn how to make this, Daddy. So I'm gonna learn how to make it. So if you want to get healthier, it's not like meat. It's vegetables. You know, I like this new sentence. You know, WTF, DRV, WLS. What the fuck does this have to do with weight loss surgery, Dr. Vuong? So I guess it would be WTF, WLS, DRV. What the fuck does this have to do with weight loss surgery, Dr. Vuong? We're really skewed about protein, and I'm gonna change that probably when I rewrite my sleeve book. One of the biggest departures from my Ultimate Lab Band Success book to my gastric sleeve book was that, because surgeons taught me when I was doing a band that salads are not good for weight loss surgery patients, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. So then I started promoting salads. My rule, protein first. I really need to make the second rule the first rule. Fill your pouch with the most nutritious food you can most of the time. So I'll probably make that switch when I update the sleeve book, and because it's much more important than protein, because that protein data, it was from long time ago. if I discussed this in the weight regain course, um, that it was old data from old studies back in the 60s and 70s when we used to do a surgery called a JIB, jejunal bypass. It's a JIB. And that was super malabsorptive, and patients had severe protein malnutrition. They went blind. They had liver failure. Mortality rate was super high. So we don't do the JIB anymore, obvious. So if you think reflux is a terrible side effect or weight regain is a side effect, imagine going blind. Imagine going blind as a side effect of losing weight. Crazy, right? So the duodenal switch is also super malabsorptive, and so the data came out of that, and so they started promoting more protein, and that has stuck, even though we know it's not necessary with a sleeve, a lap band, and even bypass patients who are further out. So we need to get back to more fruits and vegetables. I'm not telling you to be vegan. I'm not telling you you have to be vegetarian. I'm just saying you need to fill your pouch with more fresh fruits and vegetables. Green smoothies is basically a salad, liquid salad, a salad a day, lots of fruits and veggies. And number two, in this video, the blind Christine said, can we evolve if we just eat a raw vegan diet? Yes, you can. In this video, they were talking about how our brain sizes grew because we could cook food. It's not quite accurate. What it meant was that we had to develop societies of tribes, the Dr. V tribe, because to hunt an animal took a coordinated effort. So to do coordinated effort, you had to have develop some tools, even if that tool was picking up a stone and throwing stones at animals. Two, you had to figure out some form of communication so that y'all could go over there, go over that way, and you could, even if you're just grunting at each other, to coordinate an attack. That book, Sapiens, describes how we have fossilized data that we think early cavemen learned to drive animals like antelopes and buffalo and elephants and things like that into narrow passageways so that they couldn't get by unless they were like one at a time, and they would have a backlog, and then they would have cavesmen on top of the cliffs, and they would pound them, throw rocks down on the animals, and they would kill them with throwing rocks. Eventually the rocks became spears, but that took a coordinated effort to do. So with this development of a tribe, rudimentary language, tool development, that showed a processing development of our brain, which separates us from lower primates, right? And energetically gave us better nutrition, like more calories, denser calories. But we still were primarily hunters and gatherers, like primarily ate fruits and vegetables. Along with that came fire. When we, if you look at the evolution, man, one of the key things that happened was the development of fire. And with fire, we could cook our foods, preserve it, keep it longer, and then it also cut down on disease. Like obviously, if you're eating a piece of roadkill, carrion, you're more susceptible to parasitic infection and death. After fire, they say that the next major step in our evolution was when we went to farming. Then we could control crops. So to Christine's question, tip number 2, can you develop if you eat a raw vegan diet? Answer is yes, because we have such a wide variety of food now versus before. You were kind of limited. in caveman days, you're kind of limited to what you had that grew in your little area. But now you can get all sorts of fresh fruits and vegetables, all sorts of different grains, all sorts of mushrooms, all sorts of stuff that you can really have a complete raw vegan diet if you wanted to go raw. You can have cooked stuff, you can have, you know, lentils and beans, and a lot of non-meat protein sources are available to us now. So number two, number two is, yes, you can be very healthy with a raw vegetarian or vegan diet if you wanted to go extreme. And we have raw vegan athletes, like triathletes, runner, you know, like high level athletes. There are vegan football players, and as you know, those people have high caloric needs. And then we also have vegan and vegetarian bodybuilders, and they have massive amounts of muscles. So number two is, yes, it's possible to be healthy and not eat meat. Number three, and this is kind of what I'm leading to, which is, and Happy Father's Day, is we struggle with food and obesity because it's become so ingrained into our culture. So we got farming societies, and then we developed tribes. Tribes became villages. We intermarried between villages. A lot of that was, you know, we would offer up food to other tribes. We would invite other families over to eat. We would share our harvest, our abundance. So food became really ingrained into how we interact as humans. Fast forward to modern day, now you understand why it could lead to obesity and why it's so hard when people try to diet or try to lose weight, because evolutionarily speaking, it's ingrained in our DNA. So it's not just, here's what I'm trying to tell you is, like, number three, like, don't think about, you know, obesity like one generation, like, oh, this is, you know, my grandmother's apple pie recipe. We used to, you know, have dinners with my dad, and my family would gather together, or we would have big family reunions. I'm not talking 2 or 3 generations. I'm talking food culture, eating has been around us as we evolve. So you're talking, it is ingrained culturally as to be a Homo sapien. Does that make sense what I just said? Like, it goes back to our entire evolution and development of what makes us human. So you can't separate food culture from obesity. You can't sit there and say, well, you know, I'm not going to my family reunion, and if I avoid my family reunion, I'm going to somehow lose weight. Like, no, like, food culture has evolved with us for millennia, for 100,000 years, right? I hope that made sense. So you have it in your DNA to socialize with food, to give love with food, to show love with food. So this is not just your grandmother overfeeding you as a grandbaby. It is in our DNA as we evolved over millennia, over 100,000 years or 1,000,000 years, you know. Modern man has been, well, not modern man, Homo sapiens has been around like 1.5 to 2 million years. So it's, a lot of people think man has only been around for 10,000 years or so. Like, I would say modern civilization is around 10,000 years, but Homo sapiens, us, Homo sapiens, has been around for 1.5 to 2 million years. Did you know that? Homo sapiens, us, what we consider Homo sapiens, has been around for about at least 1 million years. I know, 1 to 2 million years. So, and as we evolved, food culture evolved with us. So it's in us, it's in our DNA. So just avoiding the family reunion is not going to equal weight loss, is my point. So number 4, what do we do then, Dr. V? Well, we just have to realize that obesity arose because we have such easy access to simple calories. Easy access, simple calories. So what does that mean, Dr. Vuong? I mean, when I was growing up, as recently as the 80s, who remembers this in the 80s? Grocery stores used to close on Saturdays and Sundays. So grocery stores were only open Monday through Friday. This is when I was growing up in Longview in the 80s, I remember. Because you had, then your paycheck was on Friday. The grocery stores were packed on Fridays. And if you wanted anything on Saturday and Sundays, you had to go to the 7-Eleven. You had to go to gas stations, right? Who remembers this? And this was really frustrating because, like, on Christmas Day, you get a new toy, and the toy required batteries, and if you didn't remember to get batteries, or if you were too poor to get batteries, or if you're a little Asian immigrant and your dad didn't know that you had to have batteries, you'd have to wait till like a day, you know, to like the next day before you could go to the 7-Eleven and pick up batteries. So now grocery stores are open like late hours and 7 days a week. And I remember when Taco Bell started staying open like till midnight, and people were like, who's gonna eat at midnight? But I mean, Taco Bell killed it, right? And now everybody stays up late like that. All these, restaurants and fast food places. But that's easy access to simple calories. It was weird to have vending machines. It was like, ooh, my office building has a vending machine. Oh yeah, freaking vending machines everywhere in schools and college campuses and offices and all sorts of stuff. So right now in your office, you probably have somewhere a bowl of candy, a bowl of nuts. You probably have some sort of snack or energy bar, quote unquote, in the drawer in your office. I guarantee you somebody here watching has an energy bar, protein bar in the glove compartment of your car or that middle console, just in case. So easy access to simple calories. So when I was growing up, don't tell anybody, shh, but Dr. V loves sweet potato pie and pumpkin pie. And I could only get it around Thanksgiving. And I would look forward to Thanksgiving. But now, you can have sweet potato pie year-round at any grocery store in their bakery aisle. They always have sweet potato pie, pumpkin pie, pecan pie. Who remembers back when you were younger, you could only get pumpkin pie around Thanksgiving, right? So easy access to simple calories equals obesity. We have it. And then we stop paying attention and we just, all right? So my last tip, maybe this is number 5 or 4, whatever it is. So now we use food to soothe us when we don't want to feel a feeling. I'll say that again really slowly. Now we use food to soothe us when we don't want to feel a feeling. It's feelings you don't want to feel. Self-soothing. Self-soothing with food. Right? Why, Dr. V? And so can I have an aha? Because a lot of you guys are thinking that the self-soothing with food came as something from your childhood, traumatic event, you were verbally abused, physically abused, sexually abused. You don't want to feel these feelings, so you use food to push it all down inside of you. But here's the aha. What I'm trying to tell you is you use food because you evolved that way over millennia, over 1,000,000 years. It's in your genes. It didn't happen because of something in your childhood. It didn't happen because your grandmother told you or treated you this way. It's happened over 1,000,000 years. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Now, if you don't believe me, let me ask you this question. Do you know, look at your nose real quick. Whose nose do you have? Whose nose do you have? Now, a lot of you will say, well, I have my father's nose or my grandmother's nose, or I look back at old black and white photos. You take a picture of you when you were 10 years old. You see a picture of a black and white photo of your grandmother when she was 10 years old, and you go, man, I look just like my grandmother. Comment if you know what I'm talking about, right? So maybe you remember, you go, I have my grandmother's nose. And you might be one of these families that have photo albums for a long time, and you can say, I got my great-grandmother's nose. Okay, well, do you know what your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother's nose looked like? You would say, no, Dr. Vuong, I don't know that, because, you know, before photography, you don't know what your great-great-great-grandmother, like, you don't know what your grandmother from the 1500s looks like. All right, they were doing paintings, the Renaissance, right? Doing paintings. Only the rich people had portraits. So if you're a commoner, which most of us are, like, you don't have a record, even as recently as the 1600s or 1700s, of your great-great-great-great-great-grandmother's nose. But your nose knows. Your nose knows what your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother's nose looks like, because it's on your nose. It's in your DNA. It's on here. Your body knows, your genetics knows what your early ancestors' nose looked like. Can I get an ultimate rambling man? It's not, I'm not rambling. This is the point. It's in your genetics. It's in your DNA. Food suppression, using food to cope, using food to form bonds, using food to marry into the other village, to make peace with the other tribe, using food so that you don't stress about going to war. You're using food to celebrate the peace treaty of your, I'm not talking about recent peace treaty, I'm talking about like caveman tribal peace treaty, right? Like, we're not gonna kill you if you don't kill us, back 100,000 years ago. We used food to show peace. So now, fast forward, you're not self-soothing with food because of something that happened in your childhood. You're doing it because it's in your DNA. Can I have an aha? Get it? You understand what I'm saying? So that's why it's hard. And now you have easy access to simple calories. You get stressed out. You don't want to feel. Food is connected to feelings. It is in our DNA. You're not going to get away from it because you label it with points. Weight Watchers, right? You're labeling it with points. Dude, that doesn't break up your DNA. You give it a color, red foods. Someone just says, hey, why don't you just avoid simple white starches like carbs and potatoes and rice and flour. Dude, it's in your DNA. I'm not going to avoid white rice. Why not? Asians, like, some Asian cultures eat white rice 3 times a day with every meal. With breakfast, we eat rice. So for me to sit there and say, I'm gonna lose weight by not eating white rice, it makes 0 sense. 0 sense. Right? Remember, you agreed to be cool. Why did you agree to be cool? Because this is the shit that we learn if you kind of step back from filters, right? You can say, wow. Can I get a wow, Dr. V? Wow. Using food is in my DNA. Using food to cope is in my DNA. It's in me. It goes back 1,000,000 years. Whoa. It goes back 1,000,000 years? You mean it's not because something grandpa told me? Or my great aunt was mean to me? No, honey, no, it wasn't. You mean it's not because I had a bad marriage and that's why I stress eat? Or, I'm anxious? No. We've used food for our entire evolutionary purposes. Is that cool? Wait till tomorrow's video, and then you'll be like, fuck, Duck. Can I get a fuck, Duck? Fuck, Duck. Happy Father's Day, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this challenge is elevating your life and is a blessing in your life and not a scourge or a discouragement. I hope that you are loving the Dr. V tribe, that you guys are being kind to each other over there in the Dr. V tribe group. And I hope you stay.